Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're pleased to have Jenny Hardgrave, president of Simply Flowers, Inc., joining us for her seasonal color presentation, The Great Southern Flower Show. Before we begin, I'd like to ask that everyone please keep your audio muted and enter any questions you may have during the presentation into the chat box. Then at the end of the presentation, I will ask Jenny to answer the questions that y'all have put in the chat box. So many of you know Jenny Hardgrave. She speaks at many, many industry events, and Jenny is widely recognized as an artist and professional with her award-winning seasonal color designs and installations. Not only does she love sharing her horticultural knowledge, but she also has given back to the industry by serving as the first woman president of the Metro Atlanta Landscape and Turf Association, which is now the Georgia Urban Ag Council. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen and Jenny will get started. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jenny, and I have the privilege of having the greatest job in the world. I get to make people smile every day. I get to make the world a more beautiful place. And what a glorious spring that we're having, that we get to do this all over again. So I want to talk to you today about how great this Southern Flower Show is. And it's so cool because we get to do this over and over again. We get to do this twice a year. In the summertime, we have these showstoppers with lots of choices, lots of combinations, and there's a lot of different creative opportunities to put these plants together in different ways, different colors, different textures, different heights, all those fun things. Summer is just great because we can put things together. There's a lot of volume in the summertime. There's a lot of ways that we can mix and match and just come up with show-stopping flower combinations that make people say, wow. And it's not just summer. We also get to do this in fall. I know that we're ready to say goodbye to the fall season, but we are going to be talking about it a little bit today because I think it's important to reflect on where we've been so that we can make better decisions as to where we're going in these next seasons. Great things about fall. The colors are amazing. Our palette is more limited, but we do have these great colors. We have textures as well with all of our winter vegetables, and we also have deer. But we're going to learn how to defeat those deer later on in the presentation. So here you see a really nice fall display where we've got some erysimum. Actually, that's a wallflower, that's cherryanthus, and we've got pansies, we've got violas, we've got sedum, lots of fun things. And we talked about deer. Well, you do not have to be defeated by deer even in the wintertime. We can select flowers that the deer won't eat, and wow, are they amazing. These may be kind of green and just leafy throughout the fall season through December and January, but look how amazing they are when they do bloom out in the early spring. We also have this cool opportunity to do a bonus show with our tulip and other bulb displays. We put these in December, and then there's this happy spring surprise. It is the highlight of the year. I absolutely love tulip season. I've still got a few blooming here at my house, and what's cool about tulips is it's just a special surprise, and they make people happy. At my house, this is my house a couple of years ago, the people on Kennesaw Due West love this so much that we actually get fan mail for our tulip displays. And that's how we know that what we do makes a difference in our community. So we have the greatest job in the world putting on this great Southern Flower Show. You know, over the winter months, when COVID kind of kept us all at home, my husband and I became obsessed with this show, The Great British Baking Show. And it's not because I cook, because honestly, I don't cook. And if you are curious as to why I don't cook, you can email me at this email address right here, because that's a story for another day. But it was fun to watch this show and how it all came together. And I realized this is a lot of how we do things in the flower industry. They're set up is that they have 3 different components. When they're cooking, this is a competition. They have 3 components. They have a signature dish that they create. Then there's a technical challenge and there's a showstopper. But we do the same thing in the floriculture world with how we put things together. So what is the signature challenge? How does that work? Well, signature style is, who are you? What is unique about you as a designer? As we've all started wearing masks, it's fun to watch how people wear their masks differently. I have a cat with a flower on it. These are all my obsessions. I love cats. I love flowers. I love fun things. So I was able to show my personality through my mask. You can do this with your color combinations, with your design style, because you're unique and each of your clients is unique and every season is unique. So as we learn how to understand our clients better, we can create the wow that they're expecting. So let's look at a signature style. I talked about I don't cook, but I have heard that bacon is the duct tape of the kitchen. A little bit of bacon will make anything better. It'll fix it all. So what is the duct tape of your signature style? What is it that you put into your design that pulls it all together? Each designer that I talk to is different. They have a different idea of what's amazing, and their clients do as well. There are some designers who feel very strongly that you need an element of something black to help ground a design. So here we see the black elephant ears. Lots of clients love these. They're big and they're tropical and they are just amazing. It's a very simple design. This is for an apartment community that they want drive-by appeal. This is what makes this customer say, wow. So we can look at other ways of making our clients say, wow, and it is all a matter of what works for them. This can be accomplished through a very simple warm palette. You don't have to have 100 different plants in a design to make it work. So if people don't want to use blues or purples in their design, here you go with a very simple warm palette. Just 3 plants. This is not an expensive design, but it's very, very effective. You can also have amazing layers with a white contrast. There are lots of designers who like to put a white element in their design because that white helps to purify the other colors and white really pops. This specific client does not care for yellows or lime greens, so that white helps pop out the other colors. One thing about this design that perhaps would have read a little bit better, we should have used blues against the rock work here and against the sidewalk because this does tend to blend. But in the back, the white pops really, really well against the green and it provides a nice backdrop for the purple angelonias. You can do high impact in a really small space. In this pot, we can only see 3 elements. We can see a little bit of the leaf from the ginger lily, the red flash palladium, and it's primarily a pink dragonwing begonia. There's a little bit of scavola here, but without it, you wouldn't miss it. So this is another way to say, wow. How do your clients view their beds? Drive-by impact is important. So again, this can be very, very simple. And I think that larger beds are kind of counterintuitive because you do a more simple design on a large bed to get high impact because you're viewing this at a high rate of speed. You want to get someone's attention very quickly. So those large blocks of color work really well. In the small space, you can do more detail because you're up close and personal with this plant design and you can appreciate all the fine qualities in that small space. You can also do lush layers and textures in your design. As you can see in all these examples, everything looks and feels different. And dialing in on your signature style, that's what we're trying to accomplish with our signature item. Okay. My mouse is going a little too fast. This is at a residential property. This is where someone is walking every single day. They can get up close and personal with this flower bed, and they can appreciate all the details of the mixing and the matching. The interior of this coleus, this is a Congrose coleus. From a drive-by perspective, you will never appreciate the detail in this coleus, but close up, it is a super cool plant. From far away, it's going to look a little bit muddy. One of the things I look at every year as I'm trying to come up with my signature style of the year is, what is Pantone up to? Pantone kind of helps pick the colors that are going to be popular in the interior design industry and in the fashion industry every year. Here you can see some of the past colors of the year. And what is it this year? Well, it's gray and yellow. And when I saw these colors this year, I thought, wow, this is kind of like despair with a tiny dash of hope. So I think that's kind of where we've been mentally for about 12 months, but I'm going to go more on the hope side of things. I want things to be sunny and happy and yellow again. So these are just some ideas if you're looking for color. Signature style is all about what is your personal best. What have you done that is practiced that you know is going to work every single time? Something that you can execute perfectly and it's simple for you to do. Everyone has a different signature style. This is from the Atlanta Botanical Garden last summer, and it was fun to see their signature style is very different than mine, but it's still just as beautiful. Here they've kind of done this fantasy garden around this wonderful fountain with the Chihuly glass sculpture in the center. You've got all this white, and here's my friend Felicity with her pop of pink. She really stands out amongst all that white. If you are going to do a white garden, you see how much green is in this garden. Green is going to help balance out the white in your display. If you have too much white, it's going to look kind of like that rock with the white scavola against it that you saw earlier. White can be a very harsh color to look at, and it can bleach easily. So make sure you got lots of green surrounding that to make it pop. Here, the botanical gardens, they've done monochromatic colors, and this works really well with the salvia, and then you've got some sunpatiens in behind here. And we talked about that black element that some designers like to use, and this is a Princess Caroline grass in behind these sunpatiens and some pentas. Again, we've got a black accent in here. It helps to ground things. And then you've got these warm colors that are just super fun. And there's our color of hope for 2021, that happy yellow color. The signature style, you can have textures in there that are very touchable. I want to go and pet that tibicina back there because those leaves are so furry and they feel so good. They're just really, they're kind of fun texture plants. This tibicina, this specific one with the big purple flower in the background, this one only blooms in the late summer to early fall. So if you are going to use this specific plant, make sure that you are appreciating the texture of it throughout the summer months, and then just use that purple blossom as a surprise at the end of the season. So there's some ideas about the signature part of our challenge, and it's all about what you're good at and showing off your personal skills. Next, we're going to talk about the technical challenge. And the technical challenge, these are the things that are hard about our jobs. So we have to overcome these every single season. And it seems like every year we have different technical challenges. So as we're going into spring season, I know maybe you don't want to reflect on pansies a whole lot, but I think it's important to talk about those. So let's talk about the technical challenge of pansies. The problems we have with those, I think the biggest one is root disease. We're seeing this more and more as we're experiencing what some want to call climate change. Maybe it's just a cycle of Mother Nature. I'm not skilled to answer what the reason is. I just know that something's different. We're going to look at some of these things that the blues are weaker than they have been previously, and the kill switch caused by heat. So let's look at this. Tropical storms is what I want to talk about. When we went into the fall season, we had lots of hurricanes, and a hurricane is going to bring you high pressure, high temperature, and high water. So imagine if you are gardening in a pressure cooker. This is gardening in an Instant Pot. It doesn't work really well. And if you wonder how I know about an Instant Pot, because you know why I don't cook, my husband does use one of these things, and they're pretty handy. They're pretty handy in the kitchen, not so much in the garden. So if you're gardening in an Instant Pot, what could possibly go wrong? Well, here it is. You've got high temperatures, high humidity, high pressure. If you combine all of these things, you have got the recipe for disaster with your pansies. When you do this, the root fungus is going to be very, very hard to overcome, and there's going to be substantial loss in your pansies. So here we go, just add pansies and you've got a mess. So in the past season, we had some amazing tropical activity in the planting season. Here we go. Because on top of Corona, it just got worse. So here we can see what happens when we garden in a pressure cooker. This is all disease on the edge of these beds. Look at how everything is melting out. I talked about the blue just a little bit, but can you see how the yellows and the oranges are still hanging in there okay? But on the edge, we use the blue, and we've got substantial loss in the blue color. This is what happens when we plant early and the hurricanes come and we're gardening in an Instant Pot. This is close up. You can see this is a total loss right here in the purple circle. These are plants that are getting sick. When you first look at these, you may think that this is a fertilizer problem because you've got purpling leaves, you've got yellowing leaves. But if you see this, pull the plant up and see what your roots look like. If you've got nice, strong, healthy white roots, you do have a fertility issue and you'll need to feed it. If you have roots that are sloughing off, that's when you pull on the root and the outer casing comes off, or your roots are brown or they're black, you do have a disease problem. If you fertilize while you have a disease problem, you're actually making that disease problem worse. So make sure you know what you're looking at before you start adding your chemicals. This is the hurricane season of last year. We were planting, if we started planting at the beginning of October, we had a hurricane on this week. We had a hurricane the week of the 24th. We had another tropical system November 11th. So the things that we put in at the beginning of the season, they were subjected to 3 separate tropical systems, and we lost a lot of plant material. Normally, because we have to plant at some point, we expect those first 2 weeks of October to have some losses. We had losses all the way through our installations in the end of October and into early November. And here's where I actually tracked it. Every one of these little boxes, these colored boxes, represents one of my installations. The blue is something that we installed and we didn't have to replace. The green were items that we had to replace as of 1/22 of this year. And then you can see where the hurricane or the tropical storm date was. So we had 1, 2, 3 of these. And you can see in these first 4 weeks, we had substantial losses caused by these tropical systems. And this is just another piece of information about that hurricane. This is the previous hurricane system. This is the previous year. We didn't have the same losses because we didn't have the same intensity in the hurricane systems in 2019. The other problem with the pansies and the violas, the breeding has changed in the violas. So here you can see where the purple violas on the front edge, they were getting reflected heat from the sidewalk and they just melted out. We've still got really strong kale. We've got strong dianthus. There's some of the yellow that's been affected. The blue pansy still looks great back here, but you can see where these purple violas were strongly affected by the heat. This is another heat condition. These pansies, I mean, these violas looked amazing the week before this photo was taken. Then we got a rare heat wave in February. That asphalt heated up, it reflected the heat back onto the viola bed, and it fried every one of those flowers basically overnight. So the violas are more sensitive to the heat than the pansies are. Here's a close-up of that blue that I showed you earlier, where the blues are really melting out at the front of the bed, and then everything else in the bed looks strong. So as you're looking at your fall flower designs, definitely talk to your grower and see if there's been some improvement in these blues, or you may want to look at some other options for what you put on the fronts of your beds. Another technical challenge that we have is deer. I just don't love deer. These deer were watching us plant flowers one year. There they were, just waiting on us to leave because they wanted to come and eat our plants. The problem with deer, well, they're hungry and they're big and they eat a lot. And I think that our industry as a whole has been working to try to keep them out through a barrier with the netting and the wires. And it seems like the stronger the population of deer gets, the more we try to obstruct them from getting in the bed. So the wires are getting higher, we're doubling the netting, and it gets uglier and uglier and uglier. And those pansies and violas are delicious, and the deer really, really want to eat them, and they're clever. I talked to a golf course superintendent who saw a buck out on the fairway, and he had the netting draped on his antlers, and he was the prize buck of this golf course community. All the lady deer were going to see what he knew because he could get into the pansies. He had figured out the solution, and he was wearing our netting as an accessory. So what are our solutions for this? We've got to find things that don't taste good. And there are also some weekly spray programs that are proving to be very, very effective. So here's maybe where deer are helpful. But overall, they aren't very helpful to me. So how do we overcome this? Look at this. This is one of our jobs. We put out the netting, we put out the wires, we put out everything that we knew to stop these deer from eating the flowers, and they still broke through. And we had a mess. And for some reason, the client was not impressed by this, at least not favorably. So instead of trying to go back into this location with pansies, look what we did instead. The deer don't eat these flowers. There's no netting. There's no wires. This is just a beautiful bed. It's a simple display. It's very effective, and it is not distracting. And in a community like this, where the homes are expensive, they don't want to see the tacky netting there at the front of their community. So here's another example of where we have used plants that the deer don't like to eat. Look how gorgeous that is. That is a March photograph. That dianthus is popped. The foxgloves are doing their thing. It looks really nice. It's a bright color, and this is a multi-million-dollar home that didn't have to have netting and wires to stay beautiful. This is another example. We've used heuchera. I will caution you on heuchera. It depends on the type of heuchera and your deer. I have seen deer eat heuchera down to the ground. So before you invest in this, make sure that your deer are not going to eat a large investment in heuchera. They will not eat foxglove. This is digitalis, which is what they make some heart medications from. So if the deer were to eat this, they would have a serious health issue. So foxgloves seem to be a surefire bet in deterring deer. You can also use different plants in the summer that deer won't eat. This was a late summer installation that we did. We put this in August. We used coleus, we used celosia, we used marigolds, some vinca. These are things you can put in for the summertime that the deer won't eat. Marigolds don't work well in our summer early on. They work better as a late summer, early fall plant. You can get the same type of effect with zinnias or lantanas, and both of those are resistant to deer as well. Something else that we have had some success with this winter that is rotating some of the deer chemicals with like deer scram and deer off, and going every week. We're charging our clients a little bit extra to go and spray every week. And we learned this from the golf superintendents at Reynolds at Lake Oconee, that they spray every week. Their pansies look great throughout the season, and they're not using the netting or the wires, and it's been very, very effective. We've used this spray program in several of our high deer communities, and it's working really well. The clients were thrilled this past fall with having success in the winter landscape. So our next technical challenge is weeds. I think there has been some concern with contaminated mulch over the past few years, that however they harvest the mulch, sometimes some weed seed is getting in there and we don't know it. So when we put this mulch out on a bed and we've spread all these weed seeds so beautifully and so evenly across the bed, and then they all sprout at once. And I'm not talking about just at one job. This is pigweed. And when the pigweed decided to sprout, it sprouted on all of our jobs, all on the same weekend. And we came in Monday to calls and calls and calls about this weird weed that came out of nowhere. It grew so quickly, and we had limited resources. So we had to go out and hand pull these flowers. We had some clients who were angry, they were upset, and they wanted this fixed. It was a mess. So how do you deal with weed seed and contaminated mulch? Well, you're not going to have 100% of your mulch contaminated. We had a few bags, but those few bags made a big mess. I don't like to use pre-emergence. I know different people have different experience with that, but with young baby flowers, I prefer not to use pre-emergence. I would rather hand weed. It's important to communicate with your clients if you do have a problem. As soon as we knew there was a problem, we sent out an email blast and we said, hey, if you've got something going on with your flowers, let us know. We'll get a work order team out. We'll get this pulled and managed as quickly as we can. Scouting is important. Send your managers, your crew leaders out to look for this problem, and you might want to hand pull or do a pre-emergent depending on what your practice and what your resources are. Here you can see the pigweed. It has infested everything. It's in there with the scavola and the pentas. It's made a big mess. For some reason, this client was a little upset. The pigweed absolutely covered up their entire flower bed. And again, this happened all over the city overnight, seemingly, and we had a lot of pigweed to pull. It's not just here that mulch is contaminated and pigweed happens. This was a few years ago when we had the biggest problem with the contaminated mulch. We were in Spain that summer, and I was like, look, there's pigweed in Spain too. Barcelona has pigweed. Look at that. So it's not just us. The same problem is across the globe. Another technical challenge that we have, that we've had in the past few years, has been our impatiens. Impatiens are the king of the shade. We love impatiens. And a few years back, downy mildew came in and it was wiping out our impatien crops. Again, it wasn't just here. It actually started in Europe and then it moved over here. And we were seeing absolute complete loss of our impatien crops in June and July. If we had mass plantings of this, we also had mass devastation. We gave up on impatiens for a few years, but thankfully the plant breeders did not give up on them. They have been working on resistant varieties. And some of those resistant varieties are the Extreme series, the Amara series, the Bounce series. I love the Amara series, which is what you see in this photograph. They work really, really well and they last. I've got some pictures to show you in just a second of that. The Sun Patiens are also great. The Impatiens give you big color and they can take more sun. I will advise you that if you're going to use Sun Patiens, use them where you get sun early morning to early afternoon. You don't want to put those where they only get like a south facing sun, where they only get that heat in the late afternoon on the south or west side of a property. You can also look at shade solutions that involve other plants such as coleus, dragonwings, and caladiums. So let's look at Amara Impatiens because I love them. This is at my house, and this was in September of last year. This was September 12th. Look at these. They still look amazing. Lots of color, and I have no light in this bed. It is a very dark bed. There's just a teeny bit of light there at the end of the day. And then you look at that same bed again at almost the end of November. This was almost Thanksgiving time. Everything else had gone to sleep in that bed. The creeping Jenny had gone to bed. All of the caladiums were finished, but those Amara Impatiens, they were still going strong. The Sun Patiens are another one of my favorites. Here you can see this. I do like Wild and Wonderful. I'm actually sitting on the other side of this window right now. That's where my office is. So I look out at this amazing display every single day. Big, bright, happy colors. These are the Sun Patiens on November 21st. They are still going strong. You can see the leaf drop has happened, and we've still got big color here at the end of November. We had color until it snowed on these things the 1st of December. Sun Patiens are a great solution for shade. And this is just fun. I don't cook and I don't do interior plants. And why don't I do interior plants? Because I have cats. I have lots of cats. I have 5 of them. You're going to meet some of them here in a minute. This is Jasmine, and Jasmine is very naughty. And if I try to do anything inside, well, there she is in the midst. Jasmine is a mess, and she loves to get in the middle of everything. So here's my ultimate technical challenge. I have to make all of these dots disappear by Memorial Day. Every one of these dots is one of our job sites, and the bigger the dot, the bigger the job. So I got this together yesterday, and I'm a little freaked out, but we can do this. There's 869 dots on this map. We're going to make them all go away by the end of May. All right, so we've talked about our signature challenge. We've talked about some of our technical challenges. Now let's talk about fun stuff. Let's talk about the showstopper, because this is what we want to do. We want to make people talk. We want to show off what we've got. We want everybody to see what we do, and we want to make them smile. But what does the showstopper look like? Oh, this is a showstopper. This is a 43-foot tall puppy topiary in Bilbao, Spain. It's sitting outside the Guggenheim Museum, and I read about this in a book, and I put the book down. I looked at my husband and I said, we're using Amex points and we're going to Spain. And we went to Spain for the exclusive purpose of seeing this topiary dog. It was the coolest thing ever. 43 feet high. So much fun to see that. That is a showstopper. I wish I had one of those. Another showstopper, here we are at Epcot in Florida, and amazing. That is amazing. I wish I had a 10,000 square foot bed to play with, but since I don't, I can go and appreciate what they do with the magic of Disney. Beautiful, beautiful. I love going down to the botanical gardens. They've got some cool showstoppers. This was their Imaginary Worlds exhibit in 2018, where this is one of the topiaries that they did. Lots of fun. And showstoppers can just be little things. They don't have to be big or expensive. They can be at your own house. I told you how much I love my tulip display. And this is my little showstopper for Kennesaw. A showstopper can be wild and wonderful. This is outside an apartment community where we work. And it was very funny because one of my designer friends, I was on Facebook one day and I'm like, hey, that looks familiar. And she had seen this container garden and stopped and took a picture of it. And it was just fun to see that other people are appreciating what we do and what we put in the world every day. That showstopper can be a very simple statement. It doesn't have to be the 42-foot, 43-foot topiary dog. It can be a beautiful pot outside of your home or your community. It can be very, very simple. A showstopper can be done with fall foliage. We are not stuck with just pansies and violas in the wintertime. There are very few violas in this pot. It's all about the foliage that makes this a fall showstopper. You can do high drama. This was one of my favorite beds ever when we had the opportunity to work at Hartsville-Jackson. We had a 3,000 square foot bed and it was high drama. And people talked about this bed. Oh, it was so much fun to hear people talk about this bed. It made a difference. It was definitely a showstopper and it made people talk and it made people smile, which is the coolest part of our job. We get to make people smile. You can make a showstopper with a tropical centerpiece and lots of color underneath it. You can make a showstopper in very deep shade. You're not going to be able to get a lot of blooming plants in deep shade, but these fun foliage plants will work well as a showstopper in that area. A showstopper can be a basket on your front porch. So it is anything that just makes people smile and makes a difference. So we've talked about the Great British Baking Show and how there were 3 different elements of the signature, the technical challenge, and the showstopper. So now I want to do a little bit of bonus material and like, how do you win the game? Let's take a peek behind the curtain and see how it works. The first peek behind the curtain is, how do you get there? How do you secure your spot in the Great Southern Flower Show? Well, first of all, you got to have a passion for what you do. What is your passion? I love flowers. Obviously, I love flowers. They make me happy. I've been doing this job for 25 years and I still love it. It still makes me smile. It still makes me giddy. I do 869 designs and I still love my job. I also love art. This is one of my pieces of artwork, and I love drawing. I love painting. I love using markers. And what I get to do every day is I get to paint with flowers. I get to create a living piece of artwork with plant material, and it marries all these different interests that I have of art and flowers and math and science and working with people and doing design. And I have a passion for all of this, and I have a job that I am so fortunate that I get to pull all those passions together. I also have a passion for tea. I do have passions other than flowers. I love tea. This is my tea collection, but even my tea collection is colorful. Look at it. I've got all the different tins. They're different colors. My mugs are different colors. And while I may not cook, I do make tea and I make it every day. My passion came from when I was a child. This is my mom's house and I grew up here and my parents still live there. And I still send my staff up to plant flowers for my mom in Tennessee every year. This is where it all began, was with my mom and the flowers at her house. Every Mother's Day, we would go to the nursery and pick out flowers for her boxes. And then we would come home and plant them. And it made my mom smile. And I saw the joy that plants can bring to somebody as a child. And that passion just grew and grew in me until it became my job. If you can see this concrete box right here, she has several of those around the patio. Those are the same boxes that we've been planting for 45 years. And my mom still has those, and it's still part of my passion for what I do. So I think the first thing is definitely to winning in this industry is loving your job, because it's going to show in everything that you do. The second part, if you look at the British Baking Show, there are, everything has to be judged. There's a winner. And while we're not really competing against other people, we're competing to win the favor of our clients. Our clients are our judges. So how do we do that? Because they're always watching. Those clients are always watching. So how do we impress our judges? Well, first of all, you listen. You listen to the client and you hear what they have to say. Or do they love yellow? Do they hate yellow? We looked at examples earlier where a client really didn't like yellow or lime green. We listened. We produced something that worked and was beautiful even without those colors. We have other people who don't like purple or blue. We're listening. We're responding. And when those clients give you feedback, even if you don't like the feedback, say thank you. Thank you so much for letting me know how you feel about this. Thank you so much for letting me know what your vision is for your community. Let me see if we can work this out to make your vision come true. As you do that, you're going to learn, you're going to adapt, and you're going to improve. And as you learn, adapt, and improve, you're going to change the world. And you're going to make connections with people, and you are going to make a difference. Here's some of the feedback that we get sometimes. I love this bed. My client loved this bed. But if I showed this to a different client, they might go, what? All foliage? I wanted color. I didn't want leaves. I wanted color. To me, this is color, but to other clients, this is not color. To other clients, these are just leaves. They wanted something blooming. They wanted a flower. So I have to listen for those cues from my customer and make sure I respond accordingly. Here, the client who only wants blooms, they are going to be much happier with this type of display because they have almost all blooming color. Got a little bit of potato in there, a little bit of secretia, but for the most part, this is all blooming plants. And our client is the judge, so we definitely want to understand what they want and make them smile. We're going to plant to their taste. We're going to learn from their feedback. Be open-minded. And the last part is competitors and friends. In the Great British Baking Show, one of the things I think that I truly loved about the show, even though the people were competing against one another, they still became fast friends. It's one of the things that I love about our industry, that even though I'm talking through a screen right now to people who are competitors, who are doing seasonal color out there in the marketplace, and maybe we're bidding against each other. That happens. But I would still go to lunch with any one of you and enjoy that time, because in our industry, the beautiful thing is that our competitors are also our friends. And we work so well together in this industry, and we need each other and we lift each other up. So even though we're all different, we have a place in this world. And this is Ollie, he's my cat, and this is the Cheshire Cat at the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. There's a place in a garden for each and every one of us. Whatever our style is, there is a place for us. Separately, we have impact. We are in this together. And I love learning from all of you, and I hope you're learning something from me today. I know that when we help others succeed, that we rise up as well. There's a link down here. I know a lot of people, when I've done this lecture before, this is a really fun thing about the difference between being successful and unsuccessful. And it's all about the attitude that you bring to the table. So if anybody needs this, I can definitely email it to you, because success is in your hands. It's also in your mind. So get your mind where it needs to be. And this is Harry. He very much disagrees with this statement. Petunia thinks it's great. And even though they may not agree, we can all coexist, because together we are definitely better. And that is the Great Southern Flower Show. I hope that you all have learned something today. And if there are questions, I would be glad to answer those now. My email address is shown on the screen here. So if you've got any specific questions that you want to ask me, you can reach out to me at that address.
Jenny, thank you so much. Great information as always, and you just presented in such a fun, amusing, motivating way. Would you mind sharing for a moment?
I can do that.
Thanks. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat box. I have a few questions, so if you would do this now, put in the chat box, that would be great. And before we get to the questions, I just want to thank everyone who is a member of the Georgia Urban Ag Council for joining us today. If you're not a member, I hope that you might want to take a look at our website at urbanagcouncil.com and consider joining as we advocate, educate, and promote Georgia's green industry. I also hope that you will join us for more of our lunch and learns that are scheduled through the rest of April and May. And we're going to have a live in-person event in June at a local brewery. So that information will be coming out next week. Also, for some folks joined us late, this is being recorded and we will make this into a video that'll be available for viewing later. Jenny, I have a question. Where do you recommend designers look for plant recommendations?
Definitely check with your suppliers to see what's available in the market. If you are interested in learning about plants that are being researched, every year the University of Georgia does a trial garden in Athens, and there are other trial gardens around the country and around the Southeast. If you touch base with UGA and look at their trial garden information, there's a really cool website, and they track how well these plants are doing across the season. And you can see what the up and coming plants are and how well they do in the Athens setting. I know that some of the folks who work in the gardens will also speak from time to time, and it's worth calling up the gardens. They will give you, you can go up there and tour it, and you can also look and see where some of the garden staff might be speaking to talk about more of the plant materials.
Great. Here's a question. Are you taking on any new landscape company clients?
If you want to email me, if that person wants to email me, we can talk about that later.
Can you just quickly, I mean, how long have you been in business, Jenny? I've forgotten.
It'll be 20 years in August.
Yeah, and Jenny has a great story that I know in other presentations she's told, but she's gone from tell you just a quick synopsis from where you started and where you are today.
Well, when I started Simply Flowers in August of 2001, I had about $10 in the bank. I had a lot of enthusiasm and a dream, and we built the company from absolutely nothing. Our first season, we did 12 installations, and we built that up. Now I've got 869 this season, and we're looking at about a $3.5 million company now. So we went from $28,000 that first season to over $3.5 million. And we've never really advertised. We just do this one step at a time. Urban Ag Council, which used to be Malta, was a huge, huge part of the success, especially in our early days of building Simply Flowers. I met so many wonderful people. We were able to do some work with some of the other businesses in the Malta Urban Ag Council family, and it's helped me build this to a successful company.
That's great. Here's a question. How do you improve the technical portion for fall flower maintenance program? Root rot ID.
In the fall, I believe that we're planting too early because of the way that the climate seems to be changing. If you can plant later, the closer you get to November 1st, the more success you're going to have overall with your flowers. The biggest problem that I've seen with pansies and violas, and last time I spoke in January, and I got pictures afterwards where people were saying, hey, what's wrong with my flower beds? And I was looking at the pictures, and most of them, they had planted too early. Those first 2 weeks in October, the plants never got rooted in well because it was just too warm. Does that help?
I would think it would. And I don't see any more questions. If you do have questions, after you've thought about today's presentation, Jenny will be happy to answer them. Or you can send them to me at office@georgiauac.com, and I'll pass those on to Jenny. Thank you all for joining us today. Jenny, thank you again, as always. I know this is your busiest time of year. You just told me you started planting yesterday, and I know you've got a few more designs, you've got to work them, but thank you so much for your generosity. This presentation will be available. I'll have it probably ready to go by tomorrow. And we will put it on our website at urbanagcouncil.com. Thanks to everybody. Hope to see you soon, and have a great spring.